Muted. There we
I was
go.
just
Now you can hear
muted.
me.
There we go. There we go.
Welcome back, College Baseball Central fans. Every Saturday morning, we got you. We are your college game day baseball show. We got you covered on everything going on in the previous week, everything going on so far on Friday night. I'm really excited about this show here today. Noah's producing in the background. Jake is joining me. Jake, how are we doing today? Looks like you got a little bit of the allergies going.
Yeah, it's a high pollen count season in Texas, and it was a late night last night. And I'm gonna be honest, I feel like I'm going through the ringer right now with these allergies. But
Hey,
luckily, I have college baseball to kind of tide me over.
rain, sleet, snow, flu. We tread through it all. We go through it just to give these folks what they want. And what you guys want is the highlights from the games last night. Let's get right into it. The first thing here, a great baseball rivalry, one that we all love. It's a weird, awesome setup, but it's home, neutral, away. South Carolina and Clemson. South Carolina 3, Clemson 5. Colin Priest, that 2 RBI double in the first, really got Clemson going. They had a couple more. LaCroix hits the 2 RBI double that kind of gets South Carolina back going in the third inning. Purify hits the home run there in the seventh for Clemson, and Petrie flies out to the warning track, literally to the wall. On the guy's back is touching the wall there, Jake. Really good baseball game. Says a lot about both these clubs. You know, South Carolina gets their first loss of the season. Clemson figures out ways to win. What did you think about that game last night?
Um, I think Matthew Becker he got bumped up into the Friday night just because of the injury due to Dylan Eske. He finally got a little bit of the walk bug that he had a little bit last year, and I felt like that's where South Carolina's been really effective. If they haven't walked a ton of people,
Yeah.
they finally faced a good lineup that was going to challenge them, and they really had the walk one. Luckily, they had a really good bullpen outing from Stone in the back end that kind of saved it there. But I mean, it was just an unreal environment. I think South Carolina Clemson is the biggest college baseball rivalry. Even Paul Maneri talked about it, about the bullpen down the line. They brought out the band. It seriously wasn't all out stops. And I mean, this is kind of the first time we're seeing a litmus test on South Carolina. And I know that despite they lost, it actually kind of showed me a little bit of promise about how good this team's going to be. Talmadge LaCroix finally had a little bit of some hits. I know that he's really been struggling. Ethan Petrie, even though he flew out, he still does Ethan Petrie things. And, you know, going forward, they get a home game. They get a game at Greenville. Like, the hard one's out of the way. And, I mean, they knocked Aiden Kanak out very early in that game. He really didn't look that impressive.
Yeah, I think that I took more from the South Carolina effort than I did from the loss here. I think that South Carolina is a team that we need to keep on the eye. I know they've been on the fringe of top 25s, and they're a good baseball team. They've just had so many injuries on the pitching side that we're going to have to keep an eye on down the stretch here. But, man, South Carolina's got to be feeling okay about this. They're not feeling great about it, but they're feeling okay. Heading into this next one, Southern Miss 2, TCU 5. TCU scores first. USM takes the lead. TCU ties it up on the fifth on a balk and then takes the lead on a throwing error and an unearned sac fly. But the big thing was Braden Sloan out of the bullpen was terrific in relief for TCU. He really held this Southern Miss lineup down. 4 innings, 0 hits, 7 Ks, and only 2 walks, Jake.
Yeah, I think the other thing that really kind of stood out to me was that they had Jack Bell playing shortstop instead of Anthony Silva. I know that he's kind of had a little bit of a slower start. This is a gritty, good Southern Miss team, and it's a quality win for TCU. It's going to go a long way. And again, we talked about it with South Carolina. TCU only used 2 bullpen arms, and for as much of a meat grinder as the Southern Miss lineup is, you're going to feel this game a ton on Sunday if you're Southern Miss. You know, obviously Brody Green's still doing very good. Carson Bowen had 2 hits for TCU. So I still don't know how I feel about TCU though, and maybe you can kind of help me on this. I still don't know if they're like fringe hosting, fringe top 25. Like they're kind of they're in this weird in between where they're in that kind of 20 to 30 range for me.
No, I think for me, losing Albert early in the season like that and not having one of your Friday night guys and a weekend rotation guys, I think that made a huge difference for TCU. I don't have them hosting. I think that they're going to be probably in that 2 to 3 range going out somewhere. They're going to have to find ways to win, and I think the Big 12 is a lot better in general this year. I think there's a lot better teams. I don't think that there's any super top-heavy teams, but I think in general, you're not going to go and you're not going to sweep Cincinnati. You're not going to go sweep BYU. Like, you're not going to go out there and just easily take these series on the road.
Yeah, and we'll talk about it later. Arizona's kind of looking a lot better.
Yeah, and Arizona State, I mean, UCF lost last night, and Arizona State lost last night too, but both those teams are much more improved than they were a year ago even. LSU 8 and another Big 12 team, Kansas State 5, took 10 innings. Kirill tripled home run in the third, would score later on a safety squeeze there. Dickinson finally comes alive. He continues his hot streak, hitting another home run and 4 or 6 more RBI in this one here. Big thing there in extra innings to go out there and win this one. K-State gets a couple guys that got hit by pitch with bases loaded to kind of tie that thing back up in the seventh. But this felt like a good win for LSU, but they were right there with them with K-State.
Yeah, I mean, this is a quality K-State team. I know that Arkansas fans kind of freaked out. That's aged pretty good for them. What about the relay for Monster Milam? It's weird that the three things that LSU fans that I heard that they were worried about is that Crayola can't hit, Milam doesn't have the arm for short, and then that Dickinson has been a little bit of a disappointment. I guess this was just like an anti-LSU fan day because Milam throws an absolute tank from the outfield to save it in the bottom of the ninth. Yep. Dickinson has the 3-run homer. Curiel's really, really coming along nicely. And anytime you have these bullpen games, Cade Anderson really wasn't that impressive, but, it's going to happen at times. And if you can win on Friday night when your starter doesn't have his A-plus stuff, I think that shows you're a deep, deep team. And again, it was Kansas State, so let's really not overreact a little bit here. But, I mean, this was LSU's first kind of big step up, and they rose to the occasion.
I think the reason why I've had LSU ranked so high and been a top 5 team it's because of the depth, right? The pitching depth and what they have there is what's really going to set them apart. If Dickinson comes alive like he can, and he does that last night with the 2 for 4 with 6 RBIs, Curiel comes back, he hits that triple. I think that what you're looking at is a team that's getting better, and that's scary for people in the SEC.
Yeah, and Jay Johnson knows how to get this team rolling right at the right time. I felt like last year they kind of peaked a little bit too early. And he's going to get them rolling, and they're going to be ready for SEC play.
Yeah, I have no worries there. A team I am a little bit worried about, Charlotte 10, Arkansas 11. Arkansas scores 10 in the fourth after being down 8 runs, but it felt like they were just holding on to win that one. Devlin and Maxwell both go deep for Arkansas there, and Gabe Geichel only 3 innings pitched, 10 hits, and 9 earned runs, Jake.
Yeah, I think that was one of the things that everybody kind of assumed is that he was just going to be a good starting pitcher after being at the back end of that bullpen last year. It's obvious there's still a little bit of growing pains. He hasn't been as impressive. But these kind of stuffs are going to happen, I think, at times, and especially when you kind of play an inferior opponent coming off of their Arlington trip. I will say this. I know I'm going to butcher his name because I butcher his brother's name, but Kaho Aloy has been a really, really nice surprise for Arkansas fans. He was somebody that I really highlighted in the fall as somebody I think could be in that fringe DH role if stuff kind of has fallen his way. Stuff has fallen his way, and he really has risen to the occasion. And I'm starting to kind of imagine a world where he fits into this Arkansas lineup, which is weird because I had a ton of Arkansas fans and I did my projected lineup that came after me when I had him in there. And now he's one of their best bats.
Yeah, the Aloy boys, I think that they're what really has been carrying this offense. I think that there's more offense in there. I think Arkansas, the question has been for Arkansas has been offense in the past. Now we're starting to question whether the weekend rotation is there. I think they're fine. They're going to work through this stuff. DVH is a great coach. He's going to figure out what works best for his team. He's going to figure out the best lineups, and Arkansas is going to be fine. Don't be too worried, Razorback fans. I know giving up that much to Charlotte, but Charlotte's not a bad hitting baseball club.
I said this on our SEC preview show. Charlotte was 2-0 on Friday nights, so you did the hard part. They're 1-5 outside of that, but on Friday nights they've been really, really good.
Yeah, and they've been able to hit it. For them, it's been the pitching for Charlotte down the stretch. That's why they haven't been able to win on Saturdays and Sundays. It's like
they're going to flex the SEC bullpen, I think, the rest of the weekend. I'm going to be honest with you.
Yeah, I agree. Dallas Baptist, one of the highest-ranking mid-major teams. 6, Oral Roberts 7 with the walk-off walk in the ninth there. Oral Roberts keeps finding little ways to win baseball games. They're now 6-2. DBU drops to 6-3, Jake.
Quietly 6-2, I should say. It's weird because they're an Omaha team, and they just kind of unveiled their new locker room that definitely is off the back of the Omaha money. The rest of the Summit League has not risen to the occasion, so you have to feel really, really good about Oral Roberts. And it's weird that, that DBU 5-6 years ago, they were the ones that we were talking about living to knock off these mid-majors. And then now Oral Roberts gets up for a series with DBU and kind of catches them by surprise. So it really kind of shows you how far the DBU programs come in such a short time. But Oral Roberts is a quality mid-major. Sometimes you're going to get them on a Friday night like this. Just, kind of throw the bats out there tomorrow if you're DBU and get rolling. Grant Jay had a home run too. He's been really, really impressive, I'd say, early in the season.
Yeah, and Poole hit a home run also in the 8th there. The pair of home runs tied it back up for DBU, and you think, you're watching this game going, all right, DBU figured it out. They're going to figure out a way to score in the 9th and nope. Oral Roberts goes out there and does it. And Oral Roberts last weekend on Friday night, they scored 3 in the 9th to beat Arizona State. So it's not like this team doesn't know how to win games and being 6-2 now. It's a good win for Oral Roberts. Omaha 9, Kansas 5. After the grand slam in the fourth for Burkhalter was really the turning point for Omaha. Jayhawks get their first loss of the season. They would get 3 home runs in the fourth and try to get that game back. It was 6-4 at that point. Never really got back into it. Jayhawks won on a grand slam walk-off the night before, so everybody's thinking, oh, maybe they'll come back, maybe they'll come back. Nah, they just didn't really get enough of the offense going there late.
Yeah, and Kansas fans, I want to implore you, just because I'm sure a ton of them are tuning in because Noah seems to be the mayor of Lawrence. Come out today. It's baseball. You lose games that you're not supposed to. But if you make it a rowdy environment when you play some of these Big 12 teams, they're going to fold. Get into a nice little routine. Maybe stop with some of the shoeies. I felt like Shooter McGavin watching Kansas baseball yesterday.
I
It was
loved
just
it.
turning
I'm
into
gonna be
a
honest.
rowdy.
I freaking loved every single bit of it. It's awesome. They're back home on Sunday. They play in Wichita today, Jake. But I'm very excited for this squad. I think that there's some buzz going around this Kansas team, and there's good reasons for it. I'm very excited for this team.
Yeah, I heard they were camping out for stuff.
Hey, I ended up ranking Kansas this week, and I didn't feel bad about it one bit. I thought that undefeated team and the way that they've been playing was very good. Yes, we got you, Eli. I think I mentioned that just a second ago that they are playing the game in Wichita today, and then they're back home on Sunday. Listen, go out and check out the game, though, folks. Go watch the games. They're great baseball going on, college baseball. Yes, we know that other sport of basketball is still going, and they got March Madness coming up. It's baseball season, folks. Turn it over, switch it out. It's baseball season. Speaking of another baseball game that really needs to get going, Oklahoma State 2, Tennessee 5. Gavin Killen, couple pair of home runs to start things off in the first and third there. Marin and Curley both home run as well. Pitching holds Oklahoma State to just 6 hits on the day, Jake. And Liam Doyle, 4 and a third, 3 hits, 9 Ks. He's getting the job done.
Yeah, I was down in the well for this one, so I got to hear both sides of the dugouts on it. Gavin Keelan turns on one into the second deck. Next at bat, pokes one out to right field down the lines. Third at bat, he ended up flying out to the warning track, but it was to deep center field, so I thought that would have been crazy if he went boom, boom, boom.
Everywhere.
Liam Doyle's not going to be an elite Friday night SEC pitcher. Sorry, Tennessee fans, but the bullpen, I think, was the big story of this game for Tennessee. They didn't have a single guy that threw under 94 for him today. Every single guy that they rolled out. It was really funny when I was sitting down in the Oklahoma State dugout area. They were like, yeah, just get to the bullpen. Like, once we get to the bullpen, once we get to the bullpen. And like the third or fourth guy, they go, this guy throws fucking 94 too? It was really one of the craziest things. Oklahoma State's a quality lineup, but they do have a tendency to strike out a ton. They're an adjustment type of lineup too. So it was really impressive to see Liam Peterson make adjustments. And I will say this.
Liam Doyle.
This dude is profiles as a Friday night guy. He has a ton of swagger. He's a chip on his shoulder. I mean, you saw the hot mics that he was doing. We got to talk to him after the game. He was talking million miles an hour like this. He is a starting pitcher in every sense of the word. And I'm really excited because I don't think he's peaked yet either. That's the other thing.
No, I think Doyle's going to keep getting better, and I really like what Tennessee's done so far this season, staying undefeated. I'll talk later a little bit about Oklahoma State, but the roller coaster of the offense for me has been a big question mark for Oklahoma State. But we'll talk more about them later on in the show. Miami 2, Florida 6. Lawson and Bozer each hit a home run. They both also hit RBI singles later in the game there. So they were the offense there. But the real story is Liam Peterson is 3-0 now in his 3 starts. 6 innings pitched, 4 hits, 7 Ks. Just another great start. And then the bullpen was nearly perfect, only giving up 1 hit in those last 3 innings, Jake.
Yeah, Bobby Bowser had a home run too as well. He's quietly turning into one of my favorite Florida Gator players. I'll say this about this Florida team. I feel like they're the number 1 team in the country, and I really wonder how you're going to beat them in a weekend series because, like you said, they've Liam Peterson at the top end of that order. They moved Pierce Coppola up into the Saturday role for this week. Yeah. And Jake Clement, a guy who went 4 innings, 1 hit ball, gets demoted to the Sunday role. I think that this shows how deep this rotation is. Obviously, all 3 of them are not going to go out and shove every single night, but I really wonder how you're going to win a series with the way that Florida is built. They're an old team. They're an experienced team. Brody Donay continues to do Brody Donay things. They have a ton of guys that can pick up the slack. I think they're what people thought A&M was going to be. They have deep frontline starting pitching and a lineup that really mashes. And I have Florida as my number 1 team in the country.
Florida's been a big shock to me, and again, I'll talk more about that later in the show. But they've been my just what is happening, and it's the weekend rotation. Xavier 2, Stanford 10. Stanford continues to stay undefeated, Jake. Trevor Haskins now has homered in 5 straight games. I'm not saying it's because I went and watched him live and then he started this streak of home runs, but I'm not saying it's that. They score 7 in the 8th inning. Matt Scott gets another win. He's now 3-0 in this short season here so far. 6 innings pitched, 5 hits, 2 runs, 5 Ks. Not a perfect start for him, but he goes out there and competes and knows that his team gives him a chance to win every single time.
Yeah, that's when you really kind of find out how good you are as a team, is when your Friday night guy doesn't have his A-plus stuff. And that's what we saw from Matt Scott. Matt Scott's top end is, I think, one of the best pitchers in the ACC. This night it wasn't, and Stanford went out and dominated. But I will say this. I had an ACC fan DM me this. He said, if a tree falls in the forest, do you hear it? And I said, no. And he goes, okay, if Stanford plays on the West Coast and nobody watches, do they actually play? Stanford's got to be one of those teams that we've always talked about for years, where they have to dominate in the box score and they have to win games like this, because, again, a lot of people really aren't watching Stanford baseball.
They are if they're watching me, Jake. I'm dominating that Stanford propaganda here. Listen, I said it from preseason. I had them ranked. I had them as a top 15 team. People laughed. You guys are wrong. They're a top 10 team. They could be a top 5 team this week for me, honestly. Stanford does a lot of ways to win. They have a good mix of experience. They have and young guys. They go out there and they just figure out new ways to win every single night. And Coach David Esker is one of the best coaches in the country. There's no denying that. He went to 3 straight College World Series. So I really like the Stanford squad. Let's speak about another coach here that's been going out there and winning some baseball games. Vanderbilt 8, UCLA 3. A pair of home runs in the first inning there from Johnston and Rose would prove to be enough. Johnston also hits a triple later. The freshman's just been terrific there in certain spats here for Vanderbilt. But the pitching holds UCLA to just 3 hits on the night. It was a full team victory there for Vanderbilt.
It really was. J.D. Thompson didn't have the outing that he thought he deserved last weekend, and really kind of showed everybody why he is a frontline SEC starter. I think the biggest thing for me was that Vandy just needed to get healthy. Brody Johnson missed times. Mike Mancini is another guy from James Madison that was kind of injured in and out of the lineup. While I did go hitless, I think he's another guy that just provides veteran depth. It's quietly a deep lineup, and it's quietly one that's a tough task to kind of grind through. They have a ton of long at-bats. And I will say this, it's UCLA. It's not the UCLA of 10, 12 years ago that Mark's kind of used to. But they are still a quality team. They took 2-3 in Corpus Christi. When I talked to some of the Corpus Christi coaches, they said they were very, very impressed with UCLA. They said that was the game of the year, and that's why they kind of beat them. But if Vandy can get 8 runs, and again, they're not your typical SEC team that's going to bash 4 home runs like Tennessee. They're going to manufacture runs. They're going to do stuff in weird ways. If Brody Johnson can hit the way he did last night, I think they're going to be in a ton of games this year. He's kind of the thing that makes him go, I think.
Yeah, and the pitching has been great. So that's the other thing for Vandy. You know, we've always been like, oh, pitching and defense. If they can find that mix of hitting there from Johnston and Rose hitting the home run also, I think that they have a chance there to be something special this season. As much as I didn't think that early in the season or preseason, I'm starting to believe now, and I don't like that I'm believing, but I'm starting to believe, Jake, that Vandy could be something.
It's weird because them and Wake are both private schools. They're both black and gold. They both have really great coaches, and everybody was kind of down on them. I know I was really down on Wake, and you were really down on Vandy. They really have both kind of impressed. I will say this. Our expectations for them were not as high as they probably should have been.
Yeah.
But, again, Vandy's doing what kind of we asked them to do.
Yeah. Go out there and win baseball games in the preseason. Get ready for SEC play. Try to win 17 SEC games. That's what you got to do. That's what you want to do if you want to host, and they're trying to do it. They get USC tonight, so that'll be a good test also to go down there.
Yeah, and I think they end with UConn on Sunday. It's Jackie Robinson Classic for them, so they're playing all the SoCal teams.
Arizona 3, A&M 2. Brayfogle and Summerhill hit singles there in the top of the 9th to take that lead. The A&M offense continues to struggle. Just 5 hits in the game. Prager struggled through, but he just grinded. He gave them a chance. He kept giving A&M a chance to get in there, but just not enough as they drop another game.
Yeah, as much as I would want to talk about how bad this A&M offense is and how this loss is a microcosm, just because there were, they did get rolled as hits, but I felt that those 2 plays that White Hensler had, I thought that those should have been made. I'll say this. There is absolutely no quit in that Arizona dugout. I was down in the camera well. You would have thought that they were winning and trying to add on. Every single guy that walked up, and even when they had guys get down, it was really weird that every time A&M would strike out, the guy would kind of wince or be like, oh, I didn't like that call, or oh, man. And somebody that was a veteran presence in the A&M dugout would have to go and kind of pick him up. That wasn't how it was for Arizona. It seemed like every time they struck out, They'd walk over to the on-deck batter, tell them exactly what they saw. And the game of baseball rewards people that aren't afraid to lose. And I felt like A&M played like they were afraid to lose last night.
Arizona started off 0-3. People like me started taking a victory lap, saying, "Hey, Arizona's not what you guys think they are." Now they're 6 and they've won the last 6. They're 6-3 now, and they're proving to folks we deserve to be a top 25 team. We're still there. We had a rough opening, but I think this Arizona club is going to surprise some folks.
I will say this, and I can't believe that neither of us mentioned this. The absolute dart that Braden Summerhill threw on the error, like he's a first-round guy because of his legs. He's a first-round guy because of his arms. It took an absolutely perfect throw. And even then, he swim moved on it. And it was weird too. Like it's something like that happens. I was like, I asked him, what goes through your head? I talked as Braden Summerhill and the pitcher, and he goes, we just assumed he was going to be safe, and we're going to have to figure out how to get it. And that was their mindset with it. That's how like laissez-faire in a good way they were. Is they were like, yeah, like in my head, I already had him on third base. I was already trying to figure out how to strike the next guy out, and then everything goes their way. So it really is good to kind of see the game reward people like that. And I will say this, Chip Hale can coach his ass off. He's a confident guy.
He's a really good coach. I know Monty is in full agreement with that he's a very good baseball coach, and what he's done there. After losing the first 3 and you start to feel like maybe you're losing the team, he didn't. They went out there and won the next 6, and they've looked really good doing so.
And they've won it in a variety of ways. They've outslugged teams. They had the quote-unquote walk-off. Rice on Wednesday, they came back. They're a confident bunch. Like it was weird. I heard Chip Hale say something. He goes, I think it was to White. He goes, this kid's gonna hang a slider, and you're gonna bang it. And sure enough, that's exactly what happens. They're a confident bunch.
Yeah, I like what they're doing right now and projecting themselves. You know what else I like? Chinook seeds. Man, Chinook sunflower seeds are so good. I'm going to take some with me today. I'm heading down to Eugene. I'll be down there for the Duck baseball game against Columbia, one of our Ivy League partners there. We get to go watch down there and see them. But use our code, guys, when you go check out. Go buy a bunch of seeds. They got T-shirts. They got all sorts of fun stuff there on ChinookSeedery.com. Use our code CBC. Get 10% off your order. Jake, I don't know about you. I'm having original today for the drive down. I feel like it's just an original, just a normal day for me today.
I've had Parmesan pepper. I know I was a Hatch guy, but Parmesan pepper is kind of still in my heart a little bit here recently.
I told you. I tried to sell you on it, and you laughed at me early, and now you've got the bug.
I did say this. Matt and I had a little bit of agreement. If Sam Houston State beats LSU, they're going to do a ghost pepper flavor, and I'm going to have to eat it.
Oh, I'm not in on that at all. I will videotape. Florida Gulf Coast 9. Georgia 10. The Florida Gulf Coast Twitter handle was all, these guys are SEC. What about this? What is happening here? And then they end up losing the game. Daniel Jackson homers twice and hits a double there for Georgia. They walk off on a fielder's choice error. The pitching has not been elite for Georgia, but they've done just enough to keep winning.
Yeah, and we kind of knew that going in. We knew that Leighton Finley wasn't going to be the frontline SEC guy. They were going to have to get some back-end bullpen help. That's what they have. I will say this: Ryan Black just continues to impress me every single time. I did tweet about Daniel Jackson's home runs and said, "Feed the trees." I got a quote tweet that said, "That's feeding the parking lot, not feeding the trees," because he cleared the trees.
Because he went over the trees.
And it's not a small ballpark either. I mean, this is a ballpark. This is a team that absolutely mashes. I have a bunch of guys here that have multiple hits. Nolan McCarthy is quietly one of the best SEC transfers in the country, I would say. Ryan Black continues to impress. I am going to have to look this up just because I always get him and his brother confused. Colby Branch has played a really, really good shortstop for Georgia too. No errors today. And again, he made some really kind of talented plays. And it always seems to be the team that makes the routine plays more so than the team that makes the exceptional plays. And Georgia makes all the routine plays on defense. That's why I think they're such a talented team.
And we say it all the time at this point in the year. All you got to do is go win. We don't care how ugly it is, work things out. Even if you get losses this early season, it's about working it out. But going out there, Daniel Jackson really good in that one, and Georgia gets the win. Cincy 5, UC San Diego 2. They lost last night, or Thursday night, to UC San Diego. So they've dropped the Monday and the Thursday game. Cincy was ranked in a lot of people's polls, but they come back and they get a win today, or last night. Vitorek and Klingerback both hit home runs in the win. Jake, the Cincy team kind of feels like it's all over the place right now.
Yeah, they're such a wild card. I think that they kind of reminded me of Texas Tech of old from the Big 12, where you don't know what you're going to get, but it's going to be hell when you head up to Cincinnati. They really are all over the place. I will say this. It's hard to go across the country and play baseball. And I think that they kind of took
Every
a little bit
single
of that.
Yeah.
I mean, I know it's basketball, but I've heard Penn State, UCLA talk ad nauseum about the travel. I think that was a little bit about what happened to them. I think it's going to make them stronger. And again, I think the Big 12 is really there's no bad teams in the Big 12. That's the thing that's so crazy about it is there's no elite team, but there's no bad teams in the Big 12. It's going to be a real grind.
Like I said, it's not really super top heavy, but there's a lot of good teams near the top. I mean, there's 8 or 9 teams that you think could be battling for that Big 12 championship this year. Rice 3, Mississippi State 14, an 8-run 7th inning walk-off 2-run shot from Reese. Stevens and Downs also homered in the inning. This was a really tight game there until the 6th inning when it got broken up a little bit by Mississippi State, and then the 8-run inning there to walk it off. Rice was hanging with them and battling.
Yeah, there was a point, and I know that they had the 8-run inning, but Rice had 2nd and 3rd, 1 out, and had 2 strikeouts right before that big inning. So while the score bug was a little bit kind of wonky, they hit. I'm just looking it up here. 3 home runs because I kind of lost count. They weren't even Ace Reese's. I guess was a little bit cheap, but they were not like the one that Downs hit. Which, by the way, I talked to Chris Lemonis after the game. That was a defensive replacement, and the dude parks one 108.
I know. And Stevens' ball wasn't cheap either.
No, and Ace Reese's, it was a little bit of backside, but again, I think it would have been out at a ton of places. The big one was Hunter Hines didn't play, and Garrick Fry. I did get that clarified by our buddy Steve Robertson. It is Garrick Fry. That name is very intimidating. I'm gonna be honest with you. He plays first. He's played a little bit of second from there. The North Alabama transfer. He had 3 hits. So it'll be interesting to see because Lemonis has a good kind of issue is they've had a lot of guys that are really hitting good, like Downs, like Chance, like Gehrig, and he's going to have to make some of those tough decisions. So it'll be interesting to see because the competition does get a little bit tougher today. They have Mississippi State and Arizona. I think it's going to be a good litmus test for both of those teams because I said this last night that if A&M loses to Arizona, it tells us more about A&M. I think if Arizona beats Mississippi State, that tells us a ton about how good Arizona is.
Yeah, I'm excited for those two. It's going to be a big test for Mississippi State, right? They get 2 hard tests there, and it's going to be truthful. I mean, we're going to go out there and try to see what you got and see what your lineup can do.
I will say this. They were the unfortunate one that had to draw Davion from Rice. He is, I think, Rice's only good pitcher. They get into the bullpen, so it'll be interesting to see kind of how Rice goes today against Tennessee. Just because it feels like polar opposites, the best bullpen in the country versus the worst bullpen in the country. But, that's why we go to the ballpark, Mark.
That's why we show up every day. Speaking of showing up every day, I'm going to be down there for the doubleheader today with Oregon. Columbia 11, Oregon 20. Dominic Hellman hammers a pair of grand slams, Jake, in the Ducks game. They collect 18 hits. Everybody in the lineup gets hits. That Oregon Duck team, they're down a few guys with injury. They just keep finding ways to hit the baseball.
Yeah, and I will say this. Columbia is a high-quality opponent. They're probably going to be a tournament team. Ben Fischel at the top of that lineup, I think, kind of makes it go. So it's a really, really good lineup. Owen Estenbook is a guy that had 5 RBIs. A lot of these Ivy League teams know how to hit. It's definitely a hitter's league. And it was really a good litmus test for me to kind of see where the Ivy is because I know that they played Kennesaw. Because, I'm a big fan of the Ivy, Mark, because I actually went to an Ivy League school. So it was a good test, and I'm really excited for you to go out and see them. Yeah. And again, we know what we're getting with Oregon. They're an old team. They brought a ton back. If they can kind of get rolling like they did it towards the end of one, Maddox Maloney is one of my favorite players, I think, in the Big Ten. They're a talented team that I think that they're another one where they know when they have to peak, so they're not exhausting everything early. They're just winning these games.
Yeah, this is a team, they're trying to figure things out on the pitching side still, and it shows. But they're going to be able to out-hit teams, which is something that a lot of clubs are not doing currently right now in college baseball. And I think that this Duck team with 36 home games is going to figure it out. I feel like they're a host team through and through, and I'm excited to go see them play a couple games today. I know I've been pumped about going down to that ballpark. Taking the wife with me. She's excited. She's going to go down there and watch some baseball. But I'm pumped to go down there and get some games early. Baylor 3, Oregon State 4. This game went super, super fast. 2-run single from Gavin Turley in the first. 2-run bomb from Wesley there for Baylor ties it back up. Jordan Wesley, or Wesley Jordan ties that thing up. And then a moon shot from Jacob Craig. But the big thing was that robbery by Easton Talt in right center field. I know that I shared the video with you guys. That play was made all the difference. Eric Segura now 3-0 in relief also on Fridays.
Yeah, Eric Segura was really impressive when I got to see him. This was the first time that Baylor had played a good opponent, but it was really weird because last year they lost to these opponents. They were 1-7 at this point last year, complete inverse. I'll say this. Shout out to Gavin Turley's dad. Apparently Mike had been following him since Gavin Turley was like 15. So shout out to that. I did have one question for you, Mark, though, and this is unrelated because you didn't really have that good of a game. How do you pronounce your shortstop's name? Because I've heard it pronounced 3 different ways.
Iva, so Eyevuh.
Okay, that's what I thought. And I've heard Ava, I've heard Iva, but I think he's the best shortstop in the country. And I think he's going to be the first shortstop taken on the board. If I was a coach, I would throw $1 million to his NIL to get him to come to my SEC school. He is a impressive specimen. Again, this feels weird to say because he went 0 for 3, but he has power to all fields. I think the really impressive thing, and Mark, when you see him in person, you have to tell me, he takes in and out like a master. Like it is one of the most smooth in and outs I think I've ever seen.
For being 6'5" and 220 pounds,
he's fluid.
It looks so
quick
fluid.
Release.
It's so smooth. It's so easy for him.
It's a quick. He looks like he's 5. He looks like Altuve because you know Altuve kind of has that nonchalant. That's what he's what people who try to be nonchalant look like.
But he's doing it at 6'5".
Yes.
You know he was Gatorade Player of the Year in Hawaii for basketball, right? That's how good of an athlete this kid is. So yeah, Iva Arquette. He's going to go out there. He's going to take care of business. He didn't have a great day, but Gavin Turley, I mean, they have guys that are all over the Golden Spikes Award watch list, and Jacob Craig hits his 4th home run of the year on that huge moonshot out of a big league ballpark in the upper deck. I think that there's a lot of things to like about Oregon State. They still got to figure some stuff out, but that Friday night combination of Nelson Keljo starting and then Eric Segura coming in is like having 2 Friday night guys go against you.
Oh, I did have one other thing to add. I got this from a Baylor beat writer. He goes, "Why the hell is Oregon State's coach a bodybuilder?" So shout out to Mitch.
Hey, they spent $10 million on that workout facility in center field. The whole team using it, bro.
Because there's that video of him in like just an Oregon State long sleeve. He goes, "What the hell?"
You got to remember, Mitch was a catcher at Oregon State. He played minor league ball. He managered in minor league. The guy's a baseball guy, so that's they work out together. The whole team works out.
I did think it was weird, and again, they had that 2-week rule, so it kind of makes a little bit of sense. But they flew from Austin back to Oregon State, then back to Arlington in like a day. Yeah. So they haven't just been hanging out in Texas. Mitch said they were going to get right on the plane ride. They're having a players only meeting, and one of your media friends goes, "What do you think they're saying?" Goes, that's why it's players only. So something got said because they looked really good. And again, Baylor is not a world setter, but Oregon State has to win games like this.
Yeah, and they're going to take care of business. I'm not really worried about it. They go down there and get this one. The big one today is that they get Auburn. Auburn won last night. They are now 9-1, Jake, 13-0 over Ohio State. Ohio State team that's been battling and been doing big things this year. They haven't quite piled up the wins that they want. Auburn goes 13 hits, 13 runs, no home runs. Dutton goes 6 innings for him, just the 2 hits and 9 Ks. It's a great win there for Auburn, and now they get to really test themselves against Oregon State tonight. Yeah,
Sam Dutton's moved up from the Saturday role due to an injury into that Friday night role. He's been really impressive. It was a career high in strikeouts for him. Cade Ballew's another guy that's been really impressive. But I think the one that's been most impressive for me has been Bub Terrell, the freshman. He had a breakout one this weekend. And anytime you have freshmen breakout, you always it's like, okay, what are you going to do the next week when you kind of get on everybody's scouting report a little bit? And he has another really, really good outing. They're getting lineup production from people that they didn't expect to. Derek Fabian, a guy that's been really, really good. I know last year he really struggled for them. Eric Snow coming over. I don't think they expected to get the kind of production that they're getting from him. But this Auburn team, again, I don't want to dive too much into it because they did do me dirty last year, but they are quietly one of the best teams in the SEC.
Butch can coach, and he never misses the tournament in back-to-back years, so watch out. I think this Auburn team makes some noise. Yeah. Washington State 7, Iowa 4. Now Washington State has taken the first 2 games of the series here against Iowa. The Cougs have taken those back-to-back games, and Griffin Smith collects his first win of the season. 4-hit day from Caleb Wolf for Iowa. Just not enough. They just didn't have enough other production. And Cade Obermueller gets a loss, man. The guy has no wins yet this year, Jake.
That's shocking because you felt like if Iowa was going to have a good season, it was going to be on the arm of Cade Obermueller.
Yeah.
It boosts the Arkansas RPI. I had a lot of Arkansas fans I saw on Twitter that like they keep doing second date updates on Washington State. Like there's some mid-major. But I mean, it's a good quality win, and I would say they're going to be in a new conference, so kind of these cross-country road trips that they're doing, I think, are going to be dividends.
Yeah.
But how is Cato Mueller not dominating these kind of starts?
I don't know. And, I talked to Coach Choate about it, and he's like, yeah, we expect a lot from Cade to be out there against us, and it really wasn't that kind of production that you expect to see from him, from a guy that's been around the program for a long time. And Griffin Smith is a junior college transfer. He's been terrific he battled Arkansas in that game where they should have probably beat Arkansas in the first game of that series there for Washington State. I really like what Washington State's doing. I think that Choate's got a great team going on up there. I can't wait to go up there and watch them play UNLV. But yeah, I mean, this team just continues to battle, and it's good news for Arkansas fans. Princeton 1, Wake Forest 3. The Morales home run in the bottom of the first ties it up. Keenan singles in the 7th would break the tie, and only 4 hits for Wake. But if you look at the other side of that coin, Jake, they only gave up 3 hits. I don't know what to think about Wake. The reason why I don't have Wake ranked is because I think that the offense is not there this year. I think they have plenty of pitching and bullpen, but they're just not producing anything on offense for me.
I should say this. Princeton gave Miami every bit of that they could, despite not getting a win. It was the back end of a doubleheader that they got the absolute snot kicked out of them by Maryland 17-1. It's a game that was really over before it started.
Yeah.
I will say this. Shauna Pisby is one of the better pitchers in the Ivy. He had almost double-digit Ks in only 5 innings. But, again, it's an Ivy League school. Like, I felt like Wake 2-3 years ago would have dominated. And, yes, they won, but the strikeout numbers, 13 strikeouts against a bullpen that's really not that talented, it is going to go a long, long way, and it's going to be very telling. We always say that wins tell you more than losses do. I think that's kind of how I feel about this Wake team. I think it's time I'm sure I'll make like a clip show of them, but I think it's time to retire Wake Forest, and we need to come up with something around pitching. Maybe the arm forest.
Listen, it's no longer Rake. You're correct. I don't think that they are that team this year. I think they do have the arm barn, which is going to help this team.
The arm barn, that's a good one. I like that.
I think that this Wake Forest team is going to be good. But I don't know how good because the offense scares me so much. And they get Maryland, who has put up a ton of runs. Maryland's pitching hasn't necessarily held out for them, but they've put up a ton of runs. And so it's going to really take Wake Forest something else special. We're going to see if good pitching can beat good hitting today. We're going to see plenty of that today with Maryland taking on Wake Forest. Georgetown 2, Florida State 7. Alex Lodius hits that home run there in the 3rd, gets the offense started. Georgetown ties it back up with runs in the 4th and 5th. Faroe sac fly, and then 4 runs in the 7th were enough. Miles Bailey gets another RBI single. Florida State keeps perfect on the season. Jamie Arnold doesn't get the win, but he did go 5 innings, 8 Ks, allowing 2 runs and 2 walks. I believe it was his first 2 walks of the season as well.
Oh, sorry about that. I had a sneeze. Yeah, Alex Lodius is, I think, quietly one of the best. I got another sneeze coming, Mark. Sorry.
You're good. He's one of the best. I mean, honestly, this Florida State team has surprised and just been so good. This year, I think that they've been a lot better than people were thinking they were going to be. Now, we all know Jamie Arnold. He's a Golden Spikes, finalist. The guy's going to be terrific all season long. The fact that he didn't get the win in this one here was a little surprising, but he only went the 5 innings, the 8 Ks, and just allowing the 2 runs. I have no worries for this Florida State team as long as Jamie Arnold's pitching.
Yeah, and I think that this is one where you don't want to look too far ahead if you're Florida State. They're going to have ACC play next weekend, kind of get right. Georgetown's not a high-quality opponent by any stretch of the imagination. So I'm sure that Jamie Arnold was on a very strict pitch limit as they're kind of still ramping him up. This is one of those ones where you just have to win. It doesn't matter how you win. It's not very telling of who you are as a team. A few of the bullpen, it wouldn't surprise me if they drop one at the back end just because I'm sure they're probably still working through some bullpen stuff. Guys that, haven't pitched through the first 2 weeks, it's going to be that kind of outing, I would say. So really, really not too telling from Florida State. Just go out and handle business. The lineup's been really, really good. It kind of took a little bit of a step back, but again, I think they're still a high-quality team.
Max Williams and then the freshman Miles Bailey, they've both been adding on in Lodius. I mean, I think that this team, you didn't reload as much as you needed to probably offensively, but I think the pitching staff has picked that up, and I'm really excited for this Florida State club. Cal State Northridge 0, Oklahoma 9. They are 9-0 now. Kyson Witherspoon gets another win. That's his 3rd of the season. 6-0, 5 hits, 7 Ks. A walk hits the home run in the 1st, and that proved to be enough offense right there.
Yeah, 9-0 with a 9-0 victory. I thought that was kind of funny. Malachi and Kyson Witherspoon are the best 1-2 punch, I think, in the SEC. Scouts kind of go back and forth on who's better between the two of them. They quietly have a deep lineup too. Walks had a little bit of a slower start than I think he would have liked.
Yeah.
But if they can kind of get him and Dason Harris going, this quietly turns into a scary Oklahoma team that is going to punish you if you don't make routine plays. And we've seen some SEC teams struggle to make routine plays.
Yeah, and Oklahoma just keeps finding ways to win, and they beat some good opponents. They beat teams. I think that this team is just continuing to impress us. I know for me, I didn't have them ranked early in the season. I just thought that they were somewhere in that 26 to 30 range. But those two, that 1-2 punch of the Witherspoon twins on the front, that they've been excellent.
They've been really good bullpen too. That's the other thing that I think a lot of people don't give them a ton of credit for. I mean, against Virginia,
He knows pitchers, man. Skip Johnson is a pitching guru.
He knows JUCO guys and he knows pitchers. But I know that this was on Sunday, but I think that this was last time they faced a quality opponent. They threw 8 innings in a bullpen and only gave up 1 run against a team that Virginia that a lot of people have as a top 5 offense.
Yeah.
They're gonna out talent some teams in the SEC. I think that they're gonna catch a lot of these SEC teams by surprise.
Yeah, I'm excited for this moving forward. Good win though to stay undefeated for Oklahoma. Our favorite segment, Jake, of every single weekend. Who did something cool this week?
I'll give you 2. First off, Central Connecticut State University had their opening night. They were the last team to not play. They did drop a loss, but shout out to the boys, the Blue Devils, I believe is what they are, for finally getting it out there, getting us rolling. They were among one of the last undefeated teams, technically. So sorry to see them go off the undefeated streak. And then in a more real sense, Justin LeBron just continues his hot streak.
Yeah.
I think if the season ended right this second, I'd have Justin LeBron as my Golden Spikes winner. He had another home run last night for Alabama. They hit 3 home runs in 1 inning when they were down against North Dakota State. Again, North Dakota State's not a high-quality opponent, but just to flip a script the way that they did, it all starts with Justin LeBron. And I joked with Rob Vaughn, how has none of this gone to his head? Like, have the teammates kind of kept him humble? He goes, oh, no. He goes, Justin's awesome in every sense of the word. He's hungry. He knows that he's destined for bigger things. And I think that that's a really, really good sign because we've seen that a lot of these freshman of the year candidates, they let it go to their head. And that isn't the case with Justin LeBron.
No, I've been more impressed every single day by Alabama baseball, and I'm excited to keep watching them this season here. They're one of the surprises, definitely, of this young season to be undefeated still. I have two as well, Jake. Dominic Hellman last night hitting 2 grand slams in 1 game. That's pretty cool to be able to do. Hitting 2 grand slams in the same game. Two in the season is crazy. 2 in the same game is even something else. And then, of course, if those of you who follow College Baseball Central, you saw my interview with Ryan Rimbus. The 37th perfect game in the history of NCAA baseball here in Portland, Oregon. It was tremendous. In 86 pitches, the guy was just beating up the zone. If you want to hear more about it, go and watch the interview I had with him and his catcher, Ryan Howard. Or Tyler Howard. It was great. It was so much fun to have those guys on and talk about some baseball stuff. And it's right in my neck of the woods. I've been out there to Joe Etzel. And it's a great stadium. Who so far is wowing you? This could be a good thing or a bad. This could be a wow or wow. Either way for you.
I'll do my good and then my bad. My wow was Florida. I had them in that S tier.
That's my wow is the Florida starting rotation.
Yeah, they have. I don't know how they get even better. That's the thing. Because I had very high expectations for them going into the season, and they've exceeded them. It feels like they've gotten 100 on every single game that they've done, and they're a loose team. Like I've talked to Kevin O'Sullivan a few times. Like they stayed loose, and then you kind of get a little bit dreary. Mark, Texas A&M.
That was my wow negative also is the offense of Texas A&M.
The pedantic, pedestrian, mundane offense has to stop or it's going to quickly unravel. I will say this. I believe in Michael Early. I know that a lot of people said, oh, he's in over his head. He was due to be a head coach anyway. And granted, it probably wasn't going to be at Texas A&M if Sloss stays. But he's a talented hitting coach. He's from the Tracy tree. He had Torkelson. The guys have to start playing for him. I don't think that they're playing for him. I think that there's a lot of guys that are just sitting there in the back of their head and they're like, why the hell am I here? Why didn't I follow him to Austin? I think that you have to go out. Noah's joining the show for a second, but
We're back. We're back.
I'll say this: they have to show a little bit of fight for Michael Early. It doesn't feel like they want to play for Michael Early, and Michael Early is an accomplished coach. I'll say this, and you can kind of clip this, Noah, for him. Have some chip on your shoulder because everybody in the entire country is laughing at you and looking down on you and doesn't believe in you. And you need to have a sense of pride to play for a coach that does believe in you.
Listen, they're coming off of a hot season last year, going out there and doing the big things, the College World Series. There might be some lag, and they're still rated as the number one team in the country. They will not be after this one here.
They might even be top 10.
I didn't have them in my top 5 this week. But yeah, I think that they're going to figure some things out. I'm okay with it. Florida, good. Alabama, also good, was on my wow list. They just keep finding ways to win ball games. Who needs to get going? Who really needs to figure this thing out? For me, it's Oklahoma State, Jake. Oklahoma State being 4-4 now. The offense has been a roller coaster. I told you guys I'd talk about it later. They've hit games where they score 19 runs, and then they go out there and they score 2 runs, and they really have just been all over the place with strikeouts and bad approaches. And then you look at some games, and they look like the best hitting team in the Big 12. Oklahoma State, for me, needs to get going in one consistent direction offensively.
I will say they are feeling a little bit of the Avery Ortiz injury when I talk to some of their coaches and stuff about that. So they do have a little bit of the injury bug. They always start slow, though. And I know that that's probably not something that Josh Holiday will ever admit to, but they always start slow. Like they lost 2 of 3 to Sam Houston last year. They're going to get rolling in the Big 12. I'm not too worried about them. I will say this. I think that they need another bullpen arm to step up because the lineup, like Schubert's, I will say this. He has probably one of the best approaches, I think, of anybody in the country. And I've got a ton of talented college players early. The way that he kind of goes about his business when he gets 2 strikes is honestly something A&M should take notes on. But they're going to figure it out. They always do. Josh Holiday is one of the best coaches in college baseball. They're going to peak right at the end of May like they always do and get a host, and they're going to get some SEC team that shouldn't be in the tournament that will miraculously get hot.
What team stays undefeated, Jake? What team do you feel holds on? I know we have Stanford, Tennessee, Florida, Oklahoma, North Carolina, Alabama left. Who do you think holds on the longest here and stays undefeated?
I don't think it's Tennessee or Florida just because both of them play each other the first week, and I think that's going to be a grinded out series. Give me Alabama. They go to College Station that first weekend. It's starting to not look as good as it was at the beginning of the year. I think they take care of business against North Dakota State. But I will say this. Every single team that I have pointed out that I think that they're going to be undefeated, they have lost the next game. So I said A&M, I said LSU, and I've been hesitant to say Florida, but I think it's going to be Alabama.
I'm going to stick with Stanford, and a lot of that is because, they're playing really well together. They have lots of a mix of seniors and freshmen out there on that side there, and the pitching staff just returns so much talent. I think that pitching out there is just not slumping right now, and I think that I'm going to take Stanford to have the longest undefeated streak. I think that the games that North Carolina has coming up are tougher after this weekend. I think Oklahoma, Florida, and Tennessee and Alabama already have tough matchups coming up here in the next couple weeks. So I feel like Stanford is a team that I'm going to lean on that says that they're going to stay undefeated the longest.
Who do they have? Do you know who they have?
I don't have it offhand here, no.
Give me a second.
Oh, I'm looking at for the rest of this week. They don't. The thing is with Stanford, this whole season they're not playing any midweek games except for on Mondays. So they're only playing Monday midweek games. They're not playing anything during the week at all this whole season.
Why? What?
The travel for going ACC, Paul, this year that they didn't want to have any games where they're playing like on a Tuesday or a Wednesday, even at home. So they're playing all their games are on Mondays for midweek.
Hold on, let me see what they have. As D1 loads up for me. Shout out to D1 and Kendall Rogers. I think they needed some positive PR.
Kendall still doesn't follow me.
Xavier, they play at North Carolina to open.
That's what
ACC.
I'm saying.
Yeah.
That's tough.
Duke and Cal, though. Yeah. That'll be interesting.
We'll see. We'll see what happens. One of those teams will stay undefeated in the first game. All right, Jake, final thoughts heading into the rest of the weekend here. Where are you heading today? Where are you watching?
Heading back to Houston. Yep. Well, I will say this because we didn't mention it in the show just due to time constraints. Lamar baseball. Let's have a bounce back day, boys. Yesterday didn't go the way that it was supposed to go. That is a conference series. They are down in the valley. So good luck to my Lamar boys today. Go show them how it's done.
I'm going to be over in the Valley of Oregon, going and watching the Ducks take on Columbia. I'm excited for that one. Like we both said, we both believe Columbia is a team that could win the Ivy. They both believe that they could be a good impact team there in the tournament. So very excited. Jake, thanks for joining us. For Jake and myself here, this is the Weekend Rotation. We'll see you guys again next Saturday.